Rutherford. Rutherford is our next old dead guy. Now, the thing is about textbooks that bothers me is that textbooks like to make heroes. Textbooks like to show you only the good side of people. And if they don't have a chance to show you the good side, then what they'll do is they'll tell you only what you need to know. That makes it really difficult to really see yourself in their shoes. Now, I don't really want you to see yourself in Rutherford's shoes, but I want you to get a picture of who the whole guy was. Rutherford, the whole guy, was a jerk. He was a jerk. I had to read a book about him in college. It was the worst book I've read. It was written by a physicist who wasn't a very good writer, so that had it going against it to begin with. But on top of that, Rutherford was the most unlikable man that I have ever read about in my entire life. He was racist, he was sexist, he was an anti-Semite, and even if you were, anti-Semite means that you actively dislike and work against people who are of the Jewish faith.
So he was like a Nazi.
Oh yeah, he'd have loved those guys. He'd have loved those guys. He's from California. He's working in California. Now he is a product of his times. This is 1911, and some of those viewpoints were accepted at that time. Well, we're getting close to women are trying to get the vote. So you know that there's some women that think that they're smart enough to do this kind of thing. The slaves had been freed already, so they're trying to do things, but there's still a lot of racism holding them down. A lot of people won't hire Jewish people, and he won't hire Jewish people. So, but there's nothing really in anybody's makeup that says that just because you're black, you're a woman, you're Jewish, that you couldn't do any of the things that Rutherford did. But if you didn't fit inside Rutherford's box of intelligence, then he wouldn't hire you. And on top of that, even if you were a white guy of the correct faith and the correct age, he was still prickly and difficult to get along with. People did not like this man. Okay? He is probably one of the worst historical characters I've ever had to read about that wasn't intentionally cast as a villain. Whenever you read about Hitler, he's always cast as a villain. Rutherford, he's not a villain. He's just a gross guy that has a lot of really nasty ideas that's difficult to get along with. He still does something that's worth learning about. So why am I telling you he's a gross, disgusting guy that's, not really, likable? I'm telling you because I need you to know that the people that you read about in books aren't perfect. I need you to know that they're not perfect because if you think that all of those people that you read about in books are perfect, then what hope do you have? I need you to know that he's flawed. I need you to know that he's flawed because we're all flawed too. So that way you realize that even though you're flawed and I'm flawed, we can still do great things. He is in every chemistry book you'll ever read. He is. This experiment that he came up with was genius. It was genius. But just because he can, and it's in every science textbook about the atom that it's there. It's genius stuff. But the man's flawed. So don't think that you can't do something because you might think that you're flawed too. Flaws are life. Everybody has flaws. So what is it that you need to know about him? Remember the 5 things that you need to know about these guys. You need to know the name of the guy. You need to know what order he came in. You need to know what his contribution to the atom was. You need to know what his model of the atom looked like and what he called his model of the atom. Rutherford did an experiment that was genius. He's right after J.J. Thomson, so he knows that there's an electron. But he doesn't, and J.J. Thomson logicked that there's something positive there, but he couldn't prove it. So what Rutherford did is he took gold foil and he made it paper thin, tissue paper thin. He made it so it was only about 50 atoms thick. All right? About 50 atoms thick. And then he took these little things called alpha particles, which are like little nucleuses, and they're positively charged, and he shot them at the tissue paper. You're thinking, huh? Whatever? What he expected to happen was like if you took a piece of tissue paper and shot a cannonball at it. He expected it to go right through. And then he put like photographic paper behind it so we could see where all the particles went. And he expected all the particles to go straight through. It would be just proving what he already knew. It wasn't a big deal. And the catch is that most of the particles, they did go right through. But some of them bounced. Some of those particles, they hit that tissue paper and they bounced. They bounced back. This is a revelation. This would be like if you took a cannonball and shot a piece of tissue paper and the cannonball bounced off. It was serious stuff. It was really and truly amazing. And he had to figure out, well, what does this mean? How come it didn't go straight through like I thought it would? What does this mean that this stuff is bouncing? He thought, well, whatever's causing it to bounce has to be really massive. It has to have a lot of mass. Not massive big. Massive like heavy. Does that make sense? But it has to be really, 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 really tiny. Because most of the stuff's going right through like there's nothing there. So really strong, really dense, and really tiny. So he comes up with this model where he has a small positive center and then the electrons are out and about. Notice there's no rings. Rutherford doesn't know about the rings. That's the next guy. He just has the electrons kind of out and about. All right. I've got too many videos. I'm going to erase this real quick. Go ahead.